You're watching World Talks on TVP World. I'm Aaron Darman. Washington says no ships have passed through its blockade of Iranian ports in the first 24 hours, as Donald Trump reportedly insists the United States could restart talks with Iran in the next 2 days. At the same time, the International Monetary Fund is warning that if the war escalates further, it could trigger a global recession. Here to break all of this down is David DeBatto, a retired US Army counterintelligence agent, author and host of the YouTube show No Delusion Zone. Good evening to you, sir.
Hello.
I want to start with the conflict at large, a kind of state of play. Where do things stand in your mind as we go to air tonight?
I hate to say a pun, but we're in uncharted waters. You know, the world is hanging by a thread here, watching what America will do next, specifically what Donald Trump will do next. Blockading a blockade is quite fantastical. And since China is the primary recipient of Iranian oil, they get about, well, between 80 and 90% of their oil from Iran. It just seems to me and many, many other people that the United States is setting up a confrontation with China. Because after all, if we are blockading all vessels that come in and out of Iranian ports, and China are going to have several of those vessels, we are going to have to confront Chinese vessels sooner rather than later. And I fear for the consequences of that situation, that action.
You talk me through that because, as you rightly point out, 80% of Iran's shipped oil at least goes to Beijing. How painful is this American blockade for the Chinese market? And how do you think Beijing could respond?
Well, you know, not unexpectedly, China's put out several statements on this. And one of their statements said, and this comes from the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that the move is dangerous and irresponsible, warning that the blockade would only aggravate confrontation, escalate tension, and undermine the fragile ceasefire. And the American Treasury Secretary, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, further, I think, inflamed the situation by saying that China's been an unreliable global partner 3 times in the past, once during COVID, the second time when they tried to hoard rare earth that we desperately needed, and now that he says they're stockpiling more oil instead of helping ease the global demand and shortage caused by Iran's closure of the Strait. Well, you know, again, call me crazy, but I think that the reason that China's probably hoarding oil from, as you said, they get between 80 and 90% of their oil from Iran, that they're trying to protect their national security, their national interest. If there's going to be a blockade, as we now have, of Iran, nobody knows how long that will last. Nobody knows what the outcome will be. So, yes, they are hoarding their oil and stockpiling it so they have some reserves. I don't think that's really unreasonable.
David, can you really see Donald Trump going to Beijing, meeting with Xi Jinping? It's already been postponed once. I believe now it's set down for May.
Do I really see him going there? I don't really foresee Donald Trump doing anything that I tried to foresee him doing, because if I do say he will go or he won't go, he'll do just the opposite. So I really have no idea whether he will go. I think if I had to take a guess, he'll probably postpone it depending on what's going on in the Persian Gulf right now, what's going on in the war with Iran. The timing, of course, couldn't be any worse. But, you know, Donald Trump actually thinks he gets along with Xi. So there's a really good chance that he will actually go to Beijing and keep that meeting date, that meeting appointment.
Do you believe talks with Iran could really resume so soon after they failed to find a breakthrough? I mean, is this blockade now just angering Tehran, or is it forcing them to the negotiating table?
It is not, in my opinion, forcing them to the negotiating table. To answer your first question, no, I don't see it forcing them to go into negotiations. If they do start talking within the next couple of days, I'd be very, very surprised. And to use President Trump's own phrase against him, Iran now holds all the cards. I know that the American government, the Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, have said that we have totally obliterated all of Iran's ability to attack its neighbors, to defend itself, and to attack American military forces. That's not true. No, I don't think that the Iranians are going to be forced to do anything. I believe that they are in this for the long term. I believe that they think this is going to go on for a very long time, months, if not years, and they are in no way ready to negotiate their way out of what they think is an existential crisis for them. So again, and I hate to say this, but all the cards are in their hands. And if the American administration under President Trump tried to force this by specifically landing ground troops or seizing Iranian oil fields or territory on the Iranian mainland, this catastrophe is going to ratchet up significantly, not just for America, but for the entire world economy.
It's worth noting, of course, the IMF today saying that further escalation could lead to a global recession. We've got a soundbite from the fund's chief economist. I'll play that for you now.
Now, war in the Middle East has halted this momentum. The closing of the Strait of Hormuz and serious damage to critical energy facilities in the Middle East raise the prospect of a major energy crisis should a durable solution not be found soon. Our severe scenario assumes that energy supply disruptions extend into next year with greater macro instability. Global growth falls to 2% this year and next, while inflation exceeds 6%. Downside risks are clearly very elevated. Now, the impact of the war will be uneven. Low-income energy importers are highly exposed, especially those with pre-existing vulnerabilities and limited buffers. But the damage is most severe for countries in the Gulf.
David, there's no two ways about it. That sounds like bad news. Are we in real economic trouble?
I think the majority of the world has no idea what we're on the cusp of. You mentioned that many countries are on the verge of going into a recession, a worldwide recession based on this war if it goes on any longer. I actually believe, and many other experts that know far more than I do about the economy say that many countries will be forced into a recession, but many others will be forced into an actual depression, something we haven't seen really for almost 100 years. So many of the goods and services that we all depend on and take for granted every day are going to skyrocket, not just gasoline, but for example, India, the second largest population on Earth, gets about 60% of its LPG, its liquid petroleum gas, still through the strait, still from Iran. That's gone. They're actually begging Russia to try to get some kind of a ship to get LPG to India right now. That clip just mentioned the Gulf states, where at least 20% of the world's oil comes from, as well as many other petrochemicals that the world depends on. Their economies are going to be decimated. And all of the investment that they put into other countries, including Europe and the United States, are going to be gone because they're going to need that money to rebuild their own economies, their own infrastructure, their own petrochemical reserves, their oil refineries and pipelines and so forth. And the ripple effect is going to be enormous. So even if the war were to end today, the ripple effect, the add-on effects of what's already happened in the Gulf is going to be enormous on the entire world's economy. And I don't see this war ending anytime soon.
If we go on the assumption of Trump's America First policy, surely a global recession wouldn't land with Trump's own supporters at home either. I mean, they're already grappling with a fuel crisis. They're now seemingly staring down this spat with Pope Leo and it feels funny to even say this, but an AI Jesus. So how does he expect, particularly with the midterms ahead, to garner support?
Well, I'm going to say what most of the American media just flat out refuses to say, which is that I agree with you, but I don't think that Donald Trump cares about that because the man is mentally ill. The man has serious cognitive difficulties right now. The Congress should have invoked the 25th Amendment, which forcibly removes him from office due to incapacitation, whether mental or physical. They're not going to do that because they're part of his MAGA cult. So they're going to allow this mentally deficient man, and I'm not saying this to be cruel. He is seriously suffering from some very cognitive issues, whether it's dementia, senility, Alzheimer's, or what have you. So I don't think that he knows what he's doing. He doesn't think for the future. He doesn't really know or care how this is going to affect the average American or the American economy. And the fact that he just portrayed himself through an AI graphic as Jesus Christ. I don't know if any more words need to be said about that. I can't imagine the leader of any country setting foot in their palace or in their government building if he or she did something like that. But we still have this man with his finger on the button for our nuclear weapons.
We're running out of time, but I do want to end with the flip side in a way to all of this. Is there a world, David, where this does go well, where Donald Trump and Iran, they strike a deal, they each get a slice of what they want? We're hearing about Israel and Lebanon now appearing to be on speaking terms. Is there a world where somehow this all works?
Well, the only way that I can see that this all works and that the world comes out of this fairly whole, even with some economic damage, is that Iran doesn't back down. And I don't believe that they will. And that the American government, the people around him, finally do convince him to declare victory, which he likes to do, and pull back all American forces and give in to most or all of the demands that the Iranians are making. If that happens, and I pray that it does, then yes, we can pretty much come out of this with a whole skin and at least a minor amount or a manageable amount of economic damage internationally.
David DeBatto, thank you, as always, for your time.
You bet. Thank you.
And that's all for this edition of World Talks here on TVP World. Do stay with us for more. I'm Aaron Diamond. Good night.